Okay, before I start, we have to agree on several things, okay? One is that the Egyptians and the Jews had a similar understanding of God because of their location and the fact that the Lord had hardened Pharaoh's heart, okay? The Egyptians also knew how to do tricks when they threw their staffs on the ground, not just the Jews. They are also part of the Afro Asiatic body. There's a long list of reasons, Moses and so on. The story of the Jews is a story of a Christian God or a Jewish God at odds with the other Egyptian gods, okay? So logically, there was always people in Egypt who saw things the way God wanted them to. And there was people who are really opposed to God. And it has to do with APEP and the divine order. And APEP is a snake who causes chaos, who seeks to usurp Ra, Osiris, Horus, and everyone else using chaos, right? Using a need for national security. So he can make his order, right? The order of APEP and Set. And in order for APEP to be stopped, every black man who thinks like Set needs to work with the people who think like Horus and give them the rightful place. They need to accept that their respect comes from their attributes being like Set, but it's more respectable to be Horus and he's on top of the pyramid. And then they start working together. Okay, so let's go to 1279. Now, there's people who say, well, they work together in balance, right? That's what it represents when they're pulling this reed like a thing, I forgot what it's called. And they're standing on equal ground. But no, it does not represent balance. It represents harmony. There's a difference, okay? There's a difference. So when we go to 1279, 1213 BC, approximately Ramses II, Ramses the Great, okay? Let's look at the timeline. The Greeks, the Romans are depicted so much different than Egyptians that they could not be them, okay? So when we look at the actual image, we're talking about the image of God in the Bible. What are the images on the pyramid text? Well, we see evidence of Greek and Greek history. It's separated. So these Mediterranean-looking Europeans obviously could not be the way the Jews look like, okay? So let's go on to more evidence because that is not solid enough without the rest of this. The 15th dynasty of Egypt was the first Hyksos dynasty, ruled from avarice. Now, what does avarice mean? What does it mean to have avarice? I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to let you figure it out, right? Without control of the entire land. The Hyksos preferred to stay in northern Egypt since they had infiltrated from the northeast, as opposed to uniting the land from the south, right? So the people who believe in chaos come from the northeast, okay? Just like when you look at Israel, what's northeast? What's east and northeast of Israel, right? Japheth, Babylon, right? So the people who believed in chaos and greed and usurping the natural order to make their fat snake ugly ass feel good, came from the northeast, okay? So when Masonry talks about the northeast corner, they're talking about the Hyksos, all right? Now, they're going to lie to you and say they're talking about the, Africa and Egypt in general. But when you get to the higher degrees, they say, yes, we're talking about how the Hyksos ruled from avarice, and we are actually Satanists who worship Set, Typhoon, APEP, and so on. So the names and order of kings is uncertain. The Turin king, ever heard of the Shroud of Turin? The Turin king list indicates that there were 6 Hyksos kings, with an obscure Kamudi list listed as the final king of the 15th dynasty. So the Turin rag is made up to make Japheth seem like the Christ instead of Ham, Shem, which the Bible makes clear. Okay, number of kings named APEP. Some scholars argue that there were 2. Now this brings me no pleasure. I love my mom, just like everyone else who has Masons in their family. My grandma the other day caused an argument. I posted a video. Okay, she argued with me about Masonry. My family is very much involved in the Scottish Rite because they are Scottish. And I'm related to Daniel Boone and a lot of people, like that, and Templars and such, okay? So my mom's grandfather, her favorite family member, and my grandma's father, her favorite family member, they both go on and on how he went to the highest degree of Masonry the hard way, which I assume means reading books and watching rituals and stuff like that, right? The hard way, not, donating money, not being an honorary 33rd degree, but an actual 33rd and 1/3 degree Mason based on his Scottish bloodline, his Templar bloodline, and so on. So now that we've established that, well, what does the Scottish Rite believe? Those of us who are into Masonry, we know the Scottish Rite is the most powerful faction of Masonry in America. Okay, so what do they believe? Who started it? A Confederate general, right? Okay, so when I read from Pike, right, I'm reading from somebody I might even be related to, okay? Because he's probably Scottish, I don't know. But there's a bunch of Scottish people at the church that I argue scripture over, okay? Basically, my white side of my family is a bunch of Vikings, pagans, who teamed up with Greco-Romans to control the perspective of black people and make us look bad. And why they pretend like I'm racist for calling them out for it. One of the last pages on Pike says, no one can have a right to think meanly of his race unless he also thinks meanly of himself. So these people are incapable of admitting where they went wrong. That's part of why God has to destroy them. They're being indoctrinated with this philosophy that says, hey, no matter what white people did, you can't make them look bad. In fact, I swear to God, I've had people tell me, look, we don't care whether or not what you're saying is true. It's the fact you make us look bad, right? And that makes people, including white people, think meanly of their race, which goes against Masonic doctrine, but is consistent with Christian doctrine of telling the truth. You're starting to see the philosophy of Set and Horus starting to play out. Okay? So let's go to one more place and show you exactly what they think everyone else's part is. What do they think about mind, body, and soul? What is the Scottish Rite? You know, the feeble, you know, it's kind of, remember, Vikings were short and their warrior prowess was exaggerated. No offense, okay? So what are the people who are short, whose warrior prowess was exaggerated, who had a pitiful fucking little colony compared to the massive empire of Egypt? You know, what do they think when it comes to mind, body, and soul? Are a bunch of short, fat, white guys, you know, beer guzzling guys who don't do martial arts very well, you know, going to respect Horus arts? Or are they going to look for APEP and kind of big fat man arts, you know? Well, let's see. Let's use their own words, because I don't want to put any words in, you know, their mouths. This is what my mom, my grandma, and my 33rd and 1/3 degree innocent-looking grandfather, who I put a picture of in one of my videos, with the beret, right, with the French beret, okay? Why do you think that is? You're going to see a lot of berets with panthers. That shows alliance to Masonry and French ways of thinking, okay? And who was Jacques de Molay, right? He was a French Templar. Try to keep up. Among men, some govern and others serve. Capital commands and labor obeys. And one race superior in intellect avails itself of the strong muscles of another that is inferior. And yet for all this, no one impeaches the justice of God. So to those who believe in chaos and evil, those racist Confederates from the Scottish Rite, they say, look, we are supposed to tell the black man what to do and not think meanly of our race no matter what. We cannot allow this guy to tell the truth, because that will challenge our ability to tell the black man what to do, our control over martial arts and everything else, you know, and it will make white people see that we're fucking scum who deserve to burn in hell, and they have accepted a varying degree of evil by accepting our Hyksos-like philosophy, our Japheth Babylonian Sodomite Greco-Roman-like philosophy. Do any of you doubt that I'm wrong? Look at the picture of my great-grandfather. Okay, look, I'm sure I've shown my mother at least once. Mostly Scottish. Okay, you think it's a coincidence that my great-grandfather is a 33rd and 1/3 degree Freemason, and my mom and my grandma are yelling at me with tears in their eyes saying, you don't know what you're talking about Masonry. Neither of them knew Francis Galton was a Mason. Neither of them knew Truman, or the Mason started the CIA and the OSS and eugenics. None of them knew that. But they have tears in their eyes screaming at me, you don't know what you're talking about, and you know, don't talk bad about Masonry. And of course, Americans have their back because a Mason founded this country, right? Well, the first president was George Washington. George Washington is the Masonic founder of America, like Narmer is the Light Temple founder, the Horus founder of Egypt. Egypt was founded by a good person. As much as you are all going to hate me for it and want this video to come down, America was founded by a white, racist, slave owner or supporter, piece of shit. He supported the slave owners, okay, and the international Jews who financed the slave ship. A white, Masonic, complicit, corrupt dog founded this country in the name of everything that is evil and don't think meanly about white people. We're going to tell every other race what to do kind of philosophy, okay? That's what America was founded on. So yes, Americanism is Satanism. I mean, do I have to keep spelling it out for you? And if you ask the white Christians, they'll say this, yeah, the government is sold out to Babylon. But white people, you know, they're ignorant rednecks. I'm the top martial artist in American history, a brain surgeon's son, drugged, fumed, dehydrated. They couldn't even score a point on me in 3 fucking years. Now we're going on 5 years. Undefeated. Since my first challenge in May 2012. You starting to get it now? You need to put it in context. Who is the continuity of Afro-Asiatic light moral thought? And who is the continuity of Greco-Roman thought? So why are you letting the children of Rome and the devil tell you what to think using the media and your church and everything else? Why aren't you listening to the top martial artist who's a brain surgeon's son, the only person from his whole tribe that has emphasized doing the work of God in this right now, today, while everyone else emphasizes doing the work of the church? And where's the church founded and who controls it? Romans, Italians, Romans, Italian mafia. You're listening to the mafia, all the whores they profit, all the whores they prostitute, all the businesses they extort. They're like, look, we own your business. You're going to help us run psyops on people on behalf of the Romans who infiltrated the church and the government and their Zionist allies, or we're going to shut you down. Okay, it went from you're going to pay us money to you're going to help us run psyops. In fact, it probably always was you're going to help us gang stalk people so we can have political control like Carnegie Hall. And of course, you have the Carnegie Institute and the Rockefeller Institute. And Rockefeller's bodyguard is an Italian mafia bodyguard. You starting to get it yet, man? You white people are not the good guys unless you accept Afro-Asiatic light, temple culture of God, walking in the light in its true context. Until you accept that this is not Latin or Greek, that they spoke Afro-Asiatic and had an Afro-Asiatic understanding, and your cultures went astray. Until you accept that your ancestors were wrong, and they defied God and killed Jesus, and were sodomite, Greco-Roman, pedestry practicing scum. Until you accept that, you will not make it to heaven. And I am part white, and I am telling you this. As of someone who's part white, I've accepted it. And that is symbolic of all of you white people and all you Jews having no excuse. I am part white, part Scottish, Scottish Rite white. And I accept the true gospel of God so that all you may learn from my example. I am part Jewish. Some say Syrian Jew. Judah. And I accept the true gospel of God in context. And I had to take on an African martial arts perspective and study history to understand it. It's a continuity. The Old Testament, the New. Well, what's before the Old Testament? What are the other books the Bible's referring to? And what Afro-Asiatic people wrote them as opposed to Viking psychopaths who just want to have their way and lie about God, aka the Scottish and Scandinavians. Then you have the Greeks, the Italians, the English, the French, the Germans, Ashkenazi. They all have a very powerful, well-defined history and role in the New World Order. So yes, Japheth is the children of the devil who can only be saved through the gospel, an Afro-Asiatic gospel of God. And all you whites who want to leave the church because you put your race before God, good riddance. All you whites who are on the fence right now, you need to come to the light. Thank you.